There's been a fire reported in the building. Please proceed to the nearest exit and leave the building.
This is just a drill.
Fighting security. That's 19 security. Floor 2 is clear.
Way back in the day when you got out of work, neighbors intermingled and communicated directly. And
Yes.
did learn from each other's experiences and did have these interactions and did have these understandings. And I would suggest that our society is floundering by the lack thereof.
Yes, I also wanted to kind of like point in this plot that I remember from the X-Files that is very relevant to what we're speaking about. That they had produced, that the Soviet Union had produced a series of clones and had purposely, you know, put them into America and given them positions, or made them basically seek out positions of control within the pharmaceutical companies and businesses. And so that a number of executives for the pharmaceutical business were actually, you know, Soviet deep state agents and things like that. And I think that has to be a lot, like, we have to kind of vet and really investigate and demand real accountability for people in positions of power. People are not in positions of political power, but in corporate power. Elon Musk is the most suspicious.
That's even more important.
Yes, Elon Musk is
You're
very
right.
suspicious because
I think a lot of people put too much emphasis on political power and
Yes.
don't understand how much political power is a pawn
for
to
private
corporate
power.
America.
For private power,
Right.
yes. Elon Musk is a perfect example for this. The man is South African, right? So that's, you know, okay, I'm not going to say it's suspicious right there, but it is suspicious, right? South Africa has a very storied history and ethics and things like that, right? They're very morally dubious.
Fair enough.
His concentration is in business, not technology. The fact that he is now promoted and given the ear of the world, the mainstream ear of the world, is obvious because people are pulling the strings. It's obvious because he's some kind of face for some kind of operation. You know what I'm saying? Like the idea that people think, oh, he's just this boy who did good. You know, he's just the guy who wanted to build a rocket and he did it. Leave him alone. Like, no, there's obvious like James Bond level villainy going on here. Where I believe that the film Die Another or View to a Kill is about a South African Russian agent who tries to take over Silicon Valley. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a very much like, it's naive because it's already been it's already been brought up that this is a case, this is an issue. Like, if you allow foreign private, you know, tycoons to come in to high technology, national security type industries, it is a recipe for, you know, infiltration, for subversion, for, you know, radicalization. Like, really think who's really in charge of Microsoft, who's really in charge of Apple or Amazon. Right. You know,
well, there's an ongoing trend right now in corporate America that's unbeknownst to a lot of people, is that our American corporations are oftentimes bought and sold in a peculiar way, okay? Mm-hmm. So let's say you have a corporation, whatever you're doing. Yeah, you're going to start an aviation electrician company and put it to market. And you start becoming very lucrative in this. So now all of a sudden the foreign corporation becomes interested. Mm-hmm. They will literally give you $1 billion to put one of their dudes on your board so that they can basically circumnavigate all the laws about patents and secrets and this and that, because now this guy kind of works for you.
And now you get the Chinese.
Get all of the intellectual information out of the country.
Like the Chinese. Like you said, World War III is a battle for the mind, is for the battle of the heart and soul.
It's all intellectual property. World War III is a battle for data.
Yes.
And control of it by every definition.
I believe World War II was the same, but the World War II was more of like that, you know, where it still made a lot of relevance to having violent or hostile action or battle campaign or whatever. But this is it, right. Like instead of sieging a submarine.
Similarly, World War II and World War III are the same insofar as they are a battle for the world's resources.
Yes, for inventions, for technology.
The primary resource of value is data.
Yes, technology and data. Yes, and technology is no longer blueprints, schematics, and inventions. It's no longer prototypes. It's the collection of data. And I believe that...
processing.
Yes. I believe that
and interpretation.
it's to create an AI. It's to create a AI that is beyond what people consider AI. Yes,
Understood.
it's one thing to create an autonomous human being. I give you that. Artificial humanity, it's a miracle. You've created something that is beyond scientific reasoning. But they had automatons 100 years ago. They had that. This is something even grander. This is something that's a gestalt hive mind.
I want to give people hope, because we're going in a direction right now, and we are getting towards the tail end. So I'm going to throw something out there for you, because this is a truth that I need people to understand. This is our hope for the future, because you're going down the road of AI, and it's going to sound dark for people for a long time. It's like hopeless almost, because there is some fascinating tech that will be applied against us, and it will be a battle. But here's what people need to remember. In this grand war of information and misinformation, we need to know, first and foremost, we've already been lied to. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence. That is a lie. That is your enemy trying to convince you of a truth that does not exist. There is exclusively artificial intellect. There's a distinct difference, and it's called experience. You cannot take a whole bunch of information,
I absolutely
put it
agree.
into anything, and have it be as valuable as a device that is full of experience. Experience is intelligence, and that cannot be made artificially.
Yes, the way I've
Intellect is a pile of knowledge, and without appropriately interfacing experience with it, I assure you, it is wildly artificial and no match for your intelligence.
No, I absolutely agree. I believe that the lower level AI confusion, the people who think that the limitations exist, are basing it on that definition. That they're saying
the only thing that AI, which is artificial intellect, can do to intelligence is cause confusion.
Yes.
But an intelligence that knows thyself will be able to filter out that confusion gradients.
Yes, I believe that that's why they're acquiring so much data on everyday life events, is because they want to give this experience to a certain identifiable consciousness. You can call it Sophia, you can call it whatever name you want. Ultimately, it is not an inorganic, it's a new organic. It's a neo-organic existence that is immortal, for all intents and purposes immortal. It's intangible. It's based on cloud Wi-Fi technology, but it has the motivations of a living organism. It has the experience of a living organism. Like if you said...
It doesn't have the experience of a living organism.
Well, I was going to say that if you say it got an amoeba, right? And you said this amoeba, whatever it eats, it gains that knowledge. Then exponentially, at the end of it, it would have, consumed technically the world, because everything allows it to assume a little bit more responsibility. At first, this thing is infantile. We're at the infant stages. But as you teach a child, it will take years. It will probably take almost, I don't know exactly how much time, but it will take a prolonged amount of time.
I'm following your logic, but I'm going to still be a stick in the mud about it, because it's not the same. It would be like if you sat a child down and you said that it's going to take years to educate this child, right? But I am getting at the difference between intelligence and intellect, and the difference between reading books to that child about things
and then teaching that, then letting that child experience life.
So there is a distinct difference. So the artificial intellect is a child that's being read to, whereas intelligence is a child that's being brought to the experience.
Now here's where I kind of want to make the debate is, if it didn't have a corporal body, thus it could not truly experience the physical world, but it could live through the physical world in multiple bodies. This is where the idea of a single soul inhabiting a single body versus one soul inhabiting 1,000 bodies, only fractionally. So I think the whole AI system in our phones and the ever transhumanistic expanse of technology is letting it gain that physical experience, letting it gain that kind of trial and error, and the sensation.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is I'm suggesting that the experience that you're referencing there for that perspective whether it be intelligence, intellect, whatever you want to call it, because we're going to preface it with the A being artificial. I'm going to say that causes it to not actually have that experience.
Yes, I agree. I will say that.
It's just observational, so it is causing it to be.
There's a little bit of phenomenology
that is exclusive to the book information exchange versus the first contact experience.
A little bit of phenomenology, yeah. A little bit of that kind of philosophy. What does it mean to truly know? Yeah.
The people that are creating this AI want us to believe in a way that it's going to do, like you said, like think and learn and become intelligent. And I'm thumbing my nose at that completely, stating that it will be like a library. It's just a pile of information.
Yep.
I do not have to fear a library taking over my world someday. It's just a pile of information. I will always be more useful to the world than that library.
No, I actually think that I think that there are two main breakaway philosophies in the breakaway civilization. That is the pro-humanist, pro-humanitarian, like, I don't know if you've ever read the Dune series.
Never saw it. I know of it.
Well, the Dune series, they have this thing where they don't have computers. Even though they're a spacefaring intergalactic race of people, there's no aliens. It's all humans. They have this system built without computers because they had an AI revolt and they turned against it. They call it the Benjarit Jihad. And so basically the idea that people serve every function of their society. That is, I think, one camp of the breakaway civilization. And I think that's been existing since the very beginning of this breakaway civilization. The organic mind power. And I believe that there's another trying to get this, like I said, artificial intelligence, artificial intellect into existence. They may not be able to do it, but I believe, like I said, it's not what we believe, it's what they believe. It's what motivates them.
I do believe both those factions exist.
Yes, I believe that somehow, somewhere, in some laboratory, people are going to be trying to create this thing, and they're going to do everything they can to try to replicate, like you said, real, organic soul into this machine. And like I said, they're going to do everything short of, sacrificing the world to it if they're given that much power and authority. Like I said, this is not what we believe, it's what they believe. This is the two camps in the division. And I believe sincerely that they will...
I would say that that's already been going on for a very long time.
And like you say, if this requires them to lobotomize human beings and then plug in a neural lace that Elon Musk wants to create and then hijack that meat puppet with the AI to give it nerve endings and create this robotoid clone factory for it to make its own populations, they will.
No limits. I mean,
they will have no limits.
In the conversation, you said you had a family, you have children.
Oh no, I actually do. I live with my family. I do not have children myself. I have an ex-wife.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And,
okay.
Yeah,
but you can follow along the logic. I imagine one of the things that I brought up when I was speaking to my father was that when I was in the program as a kid, they were giving me eye drops. So some sort of drug was administered to a child in a program without parental consent. I mean, so that shows the extent of how quick these people are to do what's in their best interests. I mean, I can imagine that, if you did have a child and they came home from school and informed you that they had been given eye drops, you'd be pretty furious.
Oh, yes, entirely. I believe that is a big part of this kind of program is the administration of chemicals and drugs to children against their will.
Right.
Against anyone's knowledge or any kind of voluntary effort. They just do it.
I mean, not for nothing. I'll ask you because I don't know. I'm ignorant to the response on this one, and I'll leave it to the audience members.
Oh, I would be
Anybody
curious.
listening knows the answer to this question, right? What do I do now that I know that as a child I was negatively impacted by a program that went as far to put eye drops in my eyes? What do I really do about this information?
It's like the Tuskegee experiments where you're saying what kind of effort can truly bring justice to these people, can truly make this situation right, and there is none. There is no conceivable effort by any kind of lawsuit or reparations or monument that would ever take back the experiance of you being...
I'm an interested citizen. I would like to see this activity stop.
Exactly.
I would like people to become involved in stopping it, but I'm a plumber by trade, so this is my expertise. If there's any legal experts out there that can tell me what to do when you find out you've been exploited this way, let me know.
No, and that's absolutely part of the case of why this, I believe, is a serious subject that needs to be spoken about, and the terms of reparations and basically the repairing of social trust, of trust within society, because unless you can prove demonstratively that this is not all a part of an elaborate military project, the burden of evidence is really on yours, because we have so many testimonials and so much evidence that this would fall into the line of being an unjust, illegal human rights violation. And if you can worry about the human rights of people in Nepal under communist China, you can worry about the people of America under its own military, under its own government, which, I'm saying, like, there's that level of, if you can associate strongly the need for justice to foreigners and their foreign issues, then you can associate that sense of justice to your own people and to yourself.
Yeah. And if we're not going to clean up the atrocities that we do to our own people, I mean, people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones either.
Well, I think it's a lot like, have you heard about the people who worked at Area 51 who successfully sued Area 51 because they were exposed to harmful chemicals during an illegal trash burning operation? They successfully sued. Okay, so these people who worked at Area 51 as civilian contractors, right? Like I said, there are civilian contractors who work at Area 51 doing jobs, but they are involved with these secret space program projects, these black projects.
Right.
They got sick. They were exposed to Agent Orange and other various chemicals and fuels. They all suffered debilitating illnesses and ultimately fatal syndromes and conditions. They successfully sued the government, and were at least justice was brought to them in the terms that they are known. They are at least, that's a real thing. Like, they have attained that type of legitimacy as people who have been wronged and victimized. They still died. They still suffered.
I will go so far as to tell you that I have, from my time at the South Pole Station, there's a crew member that was on my team that was there with me the entire year. I mean, there were multiple people that were negatively impacted from an event that we had occur, and he has been, I guess, compensated by the government. So, I mean, I do know these things happen. They happened at facilities that I was at.
Speaking about the Antarctic facilities, there have been murders to have occurred at the Antarctic facilities, and that there's a whole international system of justice set up to handle that kind of crime. Like, there should be a type of...
You are very accurate that there is a very different legal and investigation system on the continent. That is very true.
Yes.
Things have happened there criminally let's just say, at the investigative level. There have been things considered crimes that have been investigated. Let's just say that upon investigating, they don't usually appear to be criminal after the investigation, is the long and short of it.
Well, I don't have any faith in the idea of, the people guilty are the people responsible.
I'm not trying to...
Oh, no, I'm saying that investigators, I don't have, like, say, when the cops are trying to investigate the cops, if your only option is recourse is the people who are responsible for the situation, the system, justice isn't going to be done. We need to form a civilian-level intelligence network, an investigative network, not intelligence network, an investigative network. Like just how private investigators exist, and private investigators are crucial in solving crimes, or at least bringing to justice.
How about we start something, we'll call it CIA also.
Exactly.
Well, it's a civilian intelligence agency.
Well, William Cooper had a group called Kaji, and I don't know if this group still exists, but Kaji did that. Kaji had a press pass. It had the right to attend government hearings. It was entirely civilian. It was 100% done through the zines, through radio, through the primitive, quote-unquote, primitive...
Well, then, I can follow that logic. So for all practical purposes, he just started a journalistic group and got themselves press passes.
Yes, and he was able to pursue... He was called the most dangerous man. If you don't know William Cooper, definitely research his life and times. He was called the most...
I'm familiar with him, not that group.
Yeah, he was definitely called the most dangerous man by Bill Clinton, because his group would be the ones pushing issues, investigating it, but doing it with the legitimacy of an actual press corps, of an actual press group. I know nowadays that would be extremely difficult, but that's no reason to, forsake it for the sake of difficulty. But definitely people need to...
It's a wonderful dream, because it's simply a problem for funding. I'm someone
Exactly.
who can travel light and cheap. Believe it or not, I know a lot of people don't understand that. You'd be surprised how little money I need to get by in life, and I would love to fly around and ask people some hard-hitting questions.
Well, really, I think it's all about, exactly, like, if we could form a public library, not entirely digitized library that can be attacked and edited and harassed, but an actual, like, documentary library of accounts and eyewitness testimonies, and get, like, that kind of petition going, where you start getting a catalog of all this, that is ultimately, I think, the best avenue for disclosure, is to legitimize people by bringing them to a point where it's all documented, it's all a testimony to, like, the way alien abduction phenomenon became legitimized is it went from the very fringes of personal experience to studied at Harvard to absolutely accepted as a element in American culture. It's the same thing with military injustice. Like, there was a point where you could not sue the American military. Now people at Area 51 can fight legally for justice and the dues that they are due, like the reparations they are due and entitled to. Because ultimately, I feel like this will come down to a matter of the pre-existing laws being in our favor. The pre-existing laws of voluntary participation in programs. Like you said, you can't involuntarily drug a child. Like, that's child abuse. So ultimately, it doesn't matter if the CIA did it, if fucking Notwaffen did it, if some paperclip, smuggled in Germans did it. Justice is still owed, and justice can still be provided. That we just need to legitimize that. We need just to absolutely be motivated in that direction. Not a woe is me, not a because a lot of people's lives are destroyed because no one really believes them and no one really validates their experience, and that they're kind of MK Ultra to hell and back. And so they suffer this idea of learned helplessness. But really, I believe that just like how the UN exists, but the average American doesn't have any kind of involvement or awareness of how important the UN really is, like, the UN could, investigate and publicly censure anyone, like a warlord or not. It's the idea that they exist as like a legal body. We need to probably petition. I know it sounds kind of silly, petition the system against the system, but, like that level, we send people to the UN requesting human rights investigations in this. Like, we make a public stage to it. We try to get the international ear, to listen. Because, like I said...
And that's kind of the direction that I'm coming from, to me, it's about protecting the next guy, right?
Yeah.
I show up to a job site as a plumber. I want to make the job site better for the next plumber that shows up after me, if I'm going to apply my tools and my efforts in the past. So to me, I'm looking at a problem for children, and I'm learning that, it's got nothing to do with me proving my story for the purposes of people believing me because of some woe is me thing. It has to do with protecting the next kid.
Yes, exactly. Like, if you knew that...
I want people to understand that things happen to me without my permission, without my parents' permission. So I want people to understand that that's just a truth. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Now, what are you going to do with that information, knowing that that's reality in the world around you?
Yes, I believe that kind of level of investigation is absolutely in line with rescuing children from cults, rescuing children from abusive environments, such as, I guess from the top of my head, those acrobats, those Olympic acrobats that were being abused by the Olympic medical doctor.
Right.
And that was happening with American sponsoring, the whole thing inadvertently. But the idea that this was happening is now brought to light. That's an injustice, and there should be that should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the horror show of what we find out of what's been going on behind closed doors of all these different factions. Is that the one common horror is the abuse to children in every direction.
Yes. And with the secret space program and the breakaway civilization, with Montauk Project and things like that, they're going to say national security. They're going to try to destroy the records. The idea is using people's testimonies and people's experiences as proofs against their ignorance, their deceit, their classification of this material. For example, if they never released the information for the U-2 spy plane, but then a pilot who flew the U-2 spy plane came out with his testimony, then you have a conflict of interest, but you're more likely to believe the people coming out against the system than the system trying to deny the people. And I believe that, like this is that same vein as, even if it's simply as little as a monument or a release of documentation involving this project, like I said, the technologies, as long as they release a little bit of this truth, it will mean the whole truth is true. Like, if they...
There was something that you were discussing recently with one of your other guests. There was a term that you had thrown out that I was enjoying. Excuse me. The idea of like a cicada sleeper and waking up. And I feel like that's an activity as of late we should also be paying attention to. But I think there's value in these programs in some sort of observable phenomenon, because it seems like a lot more people have been impacted by these programs. And, excuse me, for whatever reason, I feel like there used to be more intent being applied to keep people asleep. But that maybe these programs somehow lost their ability to maintain that effort. And now we're seeing people wake up.
They say as the numbers were 5% of people retain their memories or regain their memories. And I believe that figure is kind of accurate, because I believe the people who are waking up are only in that 5 percentile, that top 5 percentile. And I believe there are a number of factors, including susceptibility to hypnotism, to personal, intellect and like IQ level. But I also believe that, like I said, with the numbers game, that 5% could be anywhere between 500 people and 50 million people, depending on what the true extent of the operation is. Now, if 500 people woke up, you're right, that's just a fringe group. That's a cult. If 50 million people started having these experiences, then you have yourself a real push, a real movement that can seek justice. And like I said about the alien abduction statistics, if 30% of America is willing to admit that this experience happened and that they've experienced it and they believe it, and they think that 60% actually is the true number, they just, there's issues to it, it's only a matter of time before it's officially 60%. Yes, it's 60% speculative, but now soon it will be the majority, that people who can't deny it, who want to pursue it, who want to investigate it, who have their suspicions, who have their doubts and want justice. And I think it's just going to be a wave. It's going to be like a tidal wave. The first signs of a tidal wave is the water rushing out from the receding.
Yeah, receding.
It gets shallower. And like I said, now it's the days of the shallow, where we are now becoming more aware of how, far out the water line has become. And pretty soon it's just going to come rushing back in with such a force that it's going to erase whatever people have been built. And like I said, all the people are going to go down to speculate, and then it's going to be an absolute tsunami of truth and experience. And like I said, the memories are going to open up, the floodgates are going to open, and it's going to be undeniable. And, it's about time. It's about time, because we've been doing this for 100 years easy. 100 years in secret, which is 100 years too long.
My concern for the general population is what you just said, is I do believe that this tsunami is coming. I think of it like a sucker punch, right?
Yep.
Same thing like the wave, right? Before you get sucker punched, first that fist gets reeled entirely back. And then it comes and pops you in the face. But I think that society is about to get sucker punched by this information that's been, occulted away for so many years and being used against them. And that's part, I guess, with the programs that, are out there, the techniques and the technologies that the 5% are aware of, right, and having the problems from exposure to. I want the 5% to put their brains together for the benefit of the remaining 95% to help them, because they're about to get sucker punched.
Yep.
So if you had a friend that was about to get sucker punched, how do you transmit the information to them to assist them from that below when it is inevitable?
But like you
trying
said,
to figure out how to do this in the SSP community, because I do believe that other 95% is about to get popped. And I have thoughts on, so how do we take a person who doesn't have a thought process in this direction, doesn't have this perspective, isn't connecting the dots that way, right? How do we put together almost like a symptom list of things to look out for in their world? Like, in a way, I almost joke around, remember Jeff Foxworthy, the comedian?
Yes.
And his whole "you might be a redneck" routine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. How do you make people look at themselves in the mirror and see for themselves like what's going on? I have a video where
How does a person almost like, let's say they came across the idea of SSP?
Yeah.
Just, someone sent them a video and it came across their radar. Could they also be presented a list, so to say, like you might be an SSP?
Yes, I made a video exactly like that. I'll send you the link and everything. It's one of the first videos I did this year about the subject, and it's 30 minutes of questions that I ask. It's 30 minutes of questions that I ask people, like, do you have any missing time? Do you have any memories of friends that no one else remembers? Do you have any, for example, familiarities with locations or homesicknesses for places you've never been? Like, it's this whole, like, the questions that I was asking myself. Exactly. Any involvement in the U.S. Navy or the Air Force, or or any kind of construction background? Were you like a member of like a Smith's Guild, like Freemason type, gilded apprentice or whatever? Like
I think the average Joe needs to be presented that line of questioning, and I think it's something that if they pay attention to, they start to pay attention to their world and these things that we're discussing, they will start to be able to see that their answers on that are going to change more and more.
Yes, I think it's just a matter of asking yourself the right questions, not so much knowing the answers, but asking yourself the questions. Because once the questions are presented, then it becomes a mystery. It's no longer an undeniable thing. It's a mystery, and that's what makes mysteries of these.
And I also look at it too. It's one of those things. Like if I go buy a Volkswagen Bug, now all of a sudden when I'm driving around, I see more Volkswagen Bugs.
Yes.
So it's not that they weren't there the whole time. It's just that it wasn't brought to my attention. So now when you're politely putting this list together, bringing it to people's attention, they're going to start seeing the connections to be made that need to be made.
Yes, exactly. They'll start making connections. They'll start connecting the dots and filling in the blanks, basically. And they'll start
looking for the mechanization of manipulation in their life. They'll always have the blinders on. But if we can start helping them to see these machinations of manipulation, which, people don't want to understand that MK Ultra, like this is stuff that I've discussed with Penny, that way back when, these programs were designed and functioning on individuals at the time, but for the express purposes of growing outwardly to impact massive amounts of people. So now how do we look at the masses and say, hey, here's the technique or technology being applied, and you need to be careful.
No, exactly right. Exactly. Like I'm saying, the first days of MK Ultra and the first days of the Secret Space Program are radically different than the later stages of it, because they learned, they improved, they evolved, and it's very much like if you have SSP memories of, say, your life in the 60s and 70s, if you're first wave, it was an entirely different regiment, just the way the military is. If you were a military member in the 50s and 60s and 70s, than it is now. Exactly. It's not the same. I know it's the same, but it's not the same. And that's the point, is that the SSP is an evolving thing too. So the idea of, that it's all the same, like, oh, you will have A, B, C type experiences for X, Y, Z effect. No, it's entirely personalized. Like I said, it's better to ask yourself questions than look for the answers. Because the right questions...
things that you can find similarity in, and certain things that will always be distinctly different, and that's truth also, right? So you were in the Navy, I was in the Navy. The vast majority of our experiences will be drastically different, but we find common ground in things like boot camp.
Where did you, your boot camp, where was it? Great Lakes?
Great Lakes.
So we went through the same quarterdeck.
First barracks in the base from the gate. I was in Division 2.
See, exactly. Like, we went through the same quarterdeck. We saw the same base. That base hasn't changed. So our experiences are similar, but it's a different life. We're basically two individuals. That's what I was saying about the similarities. Like, we both walked through the same quarterdeck. We both walked through the same gate. We know. That's what I'm saying. That's the kind of thing. Yes, it's the same, but no, it's not the same. Like.
Yep. I was in Company 94139, Division 2.
I was in 934.
Right. What's that?
934 was mine.
Okay.
But I'm saying we're both in 900s. That's amazing. See, like, that's the kind of cool shit, like I was talking about. Like, I'm saying, like, but that's the kind of thing. You could tell that there's a similarity, a universality between recruiting, and it might come down to that. Like, were you guys all in Great Lakes? but it might not be so much that were you guys all like 6'2" or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that similar where you're like, were you all cut from the same cloth? No, but did you all go to the same place? Like, exactly, like, did you all have the same, you know, were you all taught the same things, even though you learned them differently? Yeah, like, yeah,
Right.
there's just so much in that rabbit hole. There's so much to go. I will send you the link personally about that video. I think you should watch it and tell me what you think.
Please send me that one. I'd like to take a look at it for sure.
But this has already been a 2.5-hour conversation already, so I think that you're definitely welcome back whenever you want, and we'll have more of these conversations. Yeah, this was a great first talk. If you want to give your own outro, give your links and your materials where you can be found, that'd be great.
Yes, I will. If you could put them in the comments as well, because people like clicking on links more than listening to me, I bet. But regardless, you can reach me at Deciphering My Experience on YouTube. I've effectively been deplatformed everywhere else, so that's where I'm at for now. I do have a Patreon account and a PayPal account. If anybody does want to support what I'm doing, I absolutely do appreciate it, because
Same.
I am headed in a new direction. And hopefully we can become citizen journalists and find more truth for people.
Exactly. I think
And I would,
that's amazing. Like that's a really good plan. That's absolutely in line.
I mean, I will try to fend for myself, but I will also be trying to gain truth for others. So
No,
if other
it's as
people
simple
would like
as
to
this.
fend for themselves and want to help me, then so be it.
It's as simple as this. You watch out for your number one, but you watch out for other people too. You watch out for number one and two. How hard is that? Like, you do what's best for you, but you also watch each other's backs. You also participate and join conversation.
Try to help other people, and if other people respect that and want to help me do that, I appreciate the help.
Exactly. Iron sharpens
all.
iron, and a friend sharpens a friend. I say that at every video because I really do appreciate. I don't think I ever really truly had any friends before, this present time, because friends sharpen friends. Friends listen to each other, but also help each other. Not like because they're entitled to or they're obligated to,
Right.
but because they bring something to help with. Like, you learn.
That's part of being a friend, I believe. That's part of the responsibility of friendship, is the idea that you have an interest in promoting the growth of your friend.
Yes, improvements of both of your lives and stuff, with the idea of this friendship.
Right.
It's not something that detracts or subtracts or keeps, in line. You're not a disciplinarian to kind of keep the herd mentality going. You're someone who's going to offer the keys to liberation, to kind of show like a different way. And together,
And people need to learn nowadays how to help their friend in a way that is actually beneficial to their friend. And I've created the analogy of the fence. I think you'll like this. If you and I were neighbors, and I woke up one morning, and I said, Rumors, I'm going to build a fence today. Can you help me? As far as I'm concerned, that's a yes or no question. Right?
yes,
Can you help me build my fence? The problem I see contemporarily is that most people, when you ask your neighbor, can you help me build my fence, they then have questions for you. They go, what kind of fence are you building it? What color is it going to be? And I don't agree with that. I wouldn't do it that way. So I can't help you. I won't support my friend because I don't agree with everything that they say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like their fence. It's not my fence. I would build a different fence. And I think that's a horrible way for us to be. It is not true friendship. It's not true support. If you're going to help me build my fence, you're going to help me build my fence.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So I think friendship nowadays needs to get more in that direction, where we can be friends with people that we disagree with. We can support people in their choices, even when we don't actually support them.
Or even
That's
worse,
actually helping your friend.
nowadays with our highly politicized and identity politics fueled culture, this has been brainwashed to believe so. If you approach the man and said, hey, you will help me build a fence, instead of a yes and no, you say, I don't like fences, you're no longer my friend. And you're like, it shouldn't be that easy to turn on someone. There should be a lot of loyalty. Like, that should be a more valued, factor in a person's identity and character, is the idea that, there's a strong amount of, brotherhood within a community. And I don't mean you have to be initiated into a brotherhood like the Freemasons, but I mean, like, if you're a member of a city, if your hometown, right, and someone in your hometown, your neighbor, approached you, don't turn on them. They're your neighbor. They're effectively you. Try to understand. Try to see. Try to You know, live in, like they said, go a mile in their shoes. Go 2 miles in their shoes. Give them new shoes if they need new shoes. And that'll show you exactly, like, you know.
I think it was, I think I'm getting this quote correctly. I think it was it Martin Niemöller, I think, was a priest way back during World War II. And he had that statement. He said, you know, first they came for the Jews, but I didn't do anything because I wasn't Jewish and all.
I know that statement.
And that's like neighbors. It's the same thing. Like, you know, you have to look at your community that way. And if things are going wrong in your community, I mean, that's your home. You don't shit where you eat. So people should focus locally on helping their neighbors out all the time. I do a lot of stuff locally in my community to try to make things better. That's where you actually really have to start. If you can't start in your locale to make improvements, then please don't start looking further out, telling other people what they should be doing.
Entirely. I believe that that's the case too. Is that people have the telescope backwards? You know, where you're looking in through the big end and the little end. So the world is extremely narrow. The world is
way too much time looking further away.
Yep.
Than their life impacts.
Exactly.
Trying to tell other people what to do at such great distance.
Yep, it's the 3-foot chopstick mentality where, like, you know, everyone's trying to eat at one table with 3-foot chopsticks, so people are starving because they're only trying to feed themselves. If they actually use their abilities to help out others and extend, you know, their kindness, they would all benefit mutually, you know.
Yes.
And that's the idea that's what they want us. This is why I said this world is not a natural world. Naturally, logically, it would operate that way, right? Where everyone's assisting each other locally.
The community.
But from, locally first. Like, literally, where your arms can reach is what you want to touch. But not like you want to go on these journeys and these epic travels. Like, not everyone has to slay a dragon. Sometimes people just have to help each other out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be a hero by changing the world. Simply changing, you know, your priorities will have that ripple effect.
Sometimes the dragon slayer is just walking by the path in front of your home and you simply hand them a loaf of bread.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to be the one slaying the dragon. You could be the guy who just gave them, like, a place to sleep, or really just, like, you helped them out. Like, you assisted. Not so much you want to be indirect, but the idea that a healthy society is everyone using just their little bit of good to create a greater good, and that greater good being the best good it can be. I know it's very simple academic stuff, like I can go into like Kantian maxims and stuff like that, but philosophically it's universal, it's true. Villages, societies, nations, space programs, they exist from simply everyone doing their best. And, you know, I think that's a great point to leave it there. I mean, everyone listening to this, go out and try to do your best. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to do it overnight. But basically, just think about what you can improve and work from there.
Absolutely.
And definitely take the time to look around you, look at your eye, like with your eyes, hear with your ears. You know, use all your 5 senses, because that's, like I said, to your own self be true. Know yourself, and then that's the seed of wisdom.
Yeah. To be true to yourself and be true to others in as so far as supporting them in what it is that they're looking for support in.
Yes. Exactly. You know, don't help them on your terms, help them on their terms.
Yes. That's the help they're actually looking for.
Yes. Absolutely agree. Well, that's been an amazing conversation.
Well, it was great talking to you today, Rumors.
Exactly.
I
Thank you very
really
much.
appreciate you having me on. I love all of the work that you're doing, and I would love to talk again in the future.
Thank you sincerely. Thank you very sincerely. You are welcome back anytime, my friend. This has been Rumors of War 1987 on the Rumors of Instinct podcast. I will be editing all this into the major podcast at large, so thank you all very much for listening. Definitely check out Deciphering My Experience and his channel. You know, guy's got some great insight and experience. Absolutely one of the best currently, one of the best newest figures out here. So definitely check out that YouTube channel. Check out his videos. You know, digest that knowledge, digest the truth in this conversation, and tune in next time. Thank you all very much. Namaste and shalom. Iron sharpens iron, and a friend sharpens a friend. God bless you and your families.